Welcome to the Muddy Puddle Teacher podcast, and on this episode I am interviewing the wonderful Sarah Emerson. Sarah Emerson is company owner of Childhood Understood. She's a consultant, a trainer who specialises in understanding children's emotions and behaviour. So this conversation is going to be centred around the importance of moving from control to curiosity when interacting with children. What I love about Sarah is she just puts things really simply and just really gets the children. You can clearly see that she's been working with children for a long time. So go and get that cuppa, go and get yourself a biscuit and have a treat on top and listen in to this week's Muddy Puddle Teacher episode with Sarah Emerson. Welcome to the Muddy Puddle Teacher podcast. Today I am joined by Sarah Emerson. Sarah, hello, welcome.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's lovely to be here.
No problem. Sarah, just describe what you do, your field of research, your expertise, and let everybody know who you are.
Well, I have been working in early years since my early 20s, and I'm now in my late 40s. So I've been doing it for a little while. And what I found was when I was working with the children directly, it was always the children who were struggling most with their big feelings and their behaviours that I was drawn to working with. I was always curious about what was going on and trying to understand why. And as time went on, I delved more and more into that. So I ended up working more and more with children who were struggling with their behaviour for whatever reason. It might have been a previous history of trauma. It might have been an unmet need when it came to perhaps neurodivergence. It might have been just something that was going on in their lives and they were struggling with, or it might just have been the fact they were 3 or 4 and they were still figuring it all out, and so I ended up looking at that more and more. And as I progressed through kind of doing my masters and stuff like that, my focus was very much on children's emotions and how they expressed them. And I ended up, after my own daughter was born, sort of really focusing on this and doing this as a consultancy and training offer now. So I work with parents and I work with settings and I work with local authorities and schools and so on to try and help people to understand why children are doing the things they do. And that's where Childhood Understood comes from, because it's about the idea that we know that when, for example, parents or teachers look at a child who's doing something that perhaps they shouldn't be doing, or they're responding to a situation with dysregulation, if we know why, it changes the way we respond. Automatically, we become more compassionate to what they're experiencing and what they're doing. And so it helps us with our regulation too, when we understand what's going on for that child. So that's, I suppose, kind of my passion, is working out why children are doing what they're doing and how we can best support them in a way that maintains boundaries and rules. And children need that stuff. They thrive on that, but in a way that's delivered with compassion and kindness.
I love what you said there. Sort of when we unpick what's going on with the child and why they're responding with this behaviour, that then we start to regulate as well. I really like that. And I was just thinking of my eldest is autistic, and we've done a lot of unpicking throughout the years. And you're very right. Like, it's very hard to understand what's going on yourself or how to help that child. And for those that are, like you said, we're very dedicated to the job and we feel everything that they're feeling. Once you do understand it, you then know how to help them, and instantly you start to regulate, because as a parent, as a teacher, you're kind of in fight and flight as well, because you're seeing this child suffering and you don't know how to get them into that happy place. And I'm just thinking back to another child that I had in my first few years of teaching, that I felt the same, probably not as much as I do my own child, but the same thing of, what can I do here? I don't know what to do. And it's that unpicking, isn't it?
And that's a hard place to be as a teacher, because we're supposed to know, right? That's what we think. We're supposed to have the answers. We're supposed to know what we're doing. We're supposed to be in charge, quote. And so actually, when we're standing there going, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to help this child. It's very easy for us to get more dysregulated, and we tend as humans to then go into control, and we get deeper and deeper into control because we're feeling out of control. And so when I say to people, try and switch that control for curiosity, try and switch that control for connection, because when you're dealing with a child who is, you know, in fight, flight or freeze, and then we go into fight, flight or freeze, it doesn't end well. Whichever way you look at it, that's not going to go well. Whereas if we can look at them and go, I get this. I may not understand exactly, and, you know, and you referenced, you know, being autistic there. Like it's not always easy to figure out what's going on for any child, particularly a child who's autistic, because they may have in their head this very self-created routine that they need in that moment, that they're depending on for their emotional security. Their emotional life in this moment is depending on it. And we may not fully understand it, but we don't always need to. What we need to know is that there will be a reason. Maybe this is routine, maybe this is about expectations, whatever it might be. But what can we do to honor who that child is in the moment and what they need, and try and meet their needs to the best of our ability?
Do you feel like because at the early start of it, you talked about behaviour and the fact that I know with the neurodivergent children that in particular, it's our setup often that is the problem, and we can't always change that. And I know that what we're trying to do, I still teach, you see, so I know that what we're trying to do most of the time is just trying to accommodate in a setting that's probably not always appropriate for them. But also I'm tending to find that the setting's not appropriate for the majority of the children now. It's not just a small selection of children. The fact that the children aren't playing the way that they play means that the children need to be moving more, but it's that control sometimes, isn't it, like you mentioned, that we've got to get these children behaving in a certain way, otherwise we can't cope. But I do also get it at the same time, because when you've got a class full of children that want to move, yet you're being told by SLT that you've got to get through this curriculum in this certain way, highly frustrating, isn't it?
It is. The system today is not doing, I don't think, you know, teachers or children any favors really with everything you've just talked about, and it's changed so much. And I find it fascinating because obviously I go in and I see, I was watching a class last year and I was thinking, I'm diagnosed autistic and ADHD, so I've got this, you know, lovely contrasting personality that kind of comes out in different ways, and I was looking back to my school days and I was watching this class, and some things that I thought would work so well for some children, more movement, smaller group sizes, you know, some things were more child-led. But then I was also very aware as I was watching, there were probably 4 groups of children all engaged in different things, a teacher doing an input on the carpet, and there were all these different things going on. And I was thinking, I wouldn't have coped with that. Actually, my need for low sensory stimulation weirdly worked quite well in a class where everybody had to be quite quiet and sit still. Now that worked for me, but then there were other children who that would have been torturous for and who desperately needed to be moving. And that's always the challenge, isn't it? How do we have so many contrasting needs? And people say this to me, like, well, this child needs this, but then that's triggering for another child. And you're like, yeah.
Sorry. Things, isn't it? And you know, like you said at the start as well, it's like, you know, you sort of like, they think that teachers know everything and that we should have these bag of tools. But I have not taught a single autistic child that I've used the same methods with the next, and that's me teaching for 18 years. And I definitely have got a skill set better, that I've got go-to methods, but actually one method that I've used for one child has not worked with the next. So we are sort of like thinking on our feet. I think it's because neurodivergent children in particular are just so unique. And that's what I love about the neurodivergent children, is they're so unique, and it's sort of tailoring a curriculum around them.
It is. And it's asking, I suppose one of my golden questions is, what do I need to do to help this child feel safe?
Yeah.
That and it's not, we can't have perfection, you know, we can't. Reality, there's no such thing as perfect parenting, and there's no such thing as perfect teaching. This is human life, right? And we're dealing with humans. And so there are going to be ups and downs, and there are going to be good days and bad days. But what we can always ask is, again, to the best of my ability, what's going to help this child feel safe. And for some children, that's an environment. I mean, I think most children thrive on relational environments, right? They thrive on environments where relationships are important, where there's connection, where there's understanding, where there's a compassionate response. But then today, I think we've got there's so much information going around, and so many conflicting ideas, and we're becoming more and more polarized in everything in society. It feels like that we've got these kind of extremes of messaging, and it's kind of like, how do we say, look, structure is good, but imposing structure on a child who is incredibly stressed by that structure in that moment isn't going to be helpful for that child. But it doesn't mean we don't need structure. It means that we might need structure with a little bit of flexibility in there. And it means we need a relational approach with connection and compassion and curiosity. But we also need to create environments that are ultimately regulating in and of themselves, environments that don't overwhelm children, that aren't too sensory, heavy, for want of a better word, where the class and the group as a whole experiences regulation, so that it almost takes on a life of its own of regulation, rather than having to depend on one adult or two adults to try and regulate everyone all the time. And it's looking at these different techniques, I think, of yes, relationships, but also structure, but also flexibility, but also the environment as a whole, and pulling all of those together to try and create that sense of safety.
Yeah, and that's the key word, is safety. I know with my child, it is mainly that, it's feeling safe. And it was only a few little things. She's gone secondary now, and they've been absolutely amazing with her. She didn't particularly have a great time at primary, and it was that feeling unsafe. And when we say unsafe, we don't mean physically, it's emotionally. That's what it feels like for them, that it's, emotionally they can't meet my needs, and now I feel unsafe. And I was kind of like a crutch for Sienna, and when you removed me, you removed that safety that she felt. But now she's moved to secondary, and I absolutely adore Sienna's secondary school, because it was just a few things that they did. And it was just tiny little things, but that made her feel heard, and that then made her feel safe. And then now it's like a different life for her and for me.
That's amazing.
I've got a child that's not stressed, and it's like, that's just, honestly, I can't stress how much little tiny things matter, especially I think more so to the neurodivergent children.
I couldn't agree more. And sometimes it is little things. We think we've got to make big changes, but sometimes it's that idea of just holding a child in mind and thinking, this is happening tomorrow. I'm not going to wait until the last minute to tell them. I'm going to make sure they and their family know just a few days in advance, so they can prepare for it. It can take 2 minutes. It doesn't have to be big stuff. And we think children are scanning their environment literally constantly, like 4 times a second, something like that, to ask, am I safe? And they're asking their internal systems, temperature, illness, hunger, etc. They're scanning the physical environment, which includes social environment, play environment, etc. And they're scanning the adults around them to see if they're safe. And if children are doing that constantly, we need to be then asking constantly, what in this environment and what in that child could be causing dysregulation right now? Have I thought about, what happens when a child is hungry? And we've all met those children who, when they're hungry, it's the end of the game, right? Like, you're not going anywhere with that child if they're hungry. Like, it's never going to happen. They've got to have their basic needs met. And that looks different to a different child. And if we ask that question, not how do I change this behavior? How do I help this child feel safe with the best of what I've got right now? And that can be a glance. It can be dropping eye contact if that's what makes them feel safe. It can be lowering the sensory. It can be getting outside. It can be acknowledging that actually for some children getting outside can be tough initially, because actually if they've got, sensory stuff going on, going outside suddenly with noises and smells and a different experience of the weather, they might need just a heads up as to what's going on outside before they step outside, so they've got, they're prepared. All these little things during a day, holding a child in mind says to them, I've got you, I've got you, and I've got this, and together we've got this, and we can get through this.
And they feel protected by you, because it isn't okay for children to feel unsafe at school. It really isn't okay. I think, Wales, they've got a really lovely, nurturing curriculum, and I think they're doing everything in the right way. I think us as teachers, especially more so in our early years, we're kind of shifting from that academic teacher to that emotional support tool, and actually working out children and behaviour. So we've got those good foundations, that good toolkit possibly for those key children, so that can then be taken on through school and they start to feel comforted and supported. Because I'm still going into, I consult still as well, and I go into my schools and I'm still seeing, I'm seeing a lot of behaviour in year 6, and then these children not transitioning to secondary because if we can't regulate in year 6, we're going to have some big problems in secondary, because it's a completely different environment and far less nurturing than I was in secondary last year, and I was a bit like, oh my goodness, like this is a massive step from year 6 to year 7 and there was a child there as well that I taught when she was 5 and she was now 15, and just to see the lack of support, but how much she was coming to me a lot because she realized that she's now got this teacher that would support her. It could really, do we even need a curriculum in early years? Should it just really be around social, emotional and play?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
because children, and it's play according to that child's drive. And we've talked quite a lot about neurodivergent children, and that's, it's starting to shift. As I go into nurseries now, I'm starting to hear less about red flags and concerns and more about ways of playing and ways of being, and respecting that child's need. But you try and make any 2 or 3-year-old conform, any adult even try to conform to somebody they're not innately, you're going to cause stress, right? And so actually, when we see all children through this lens of capability, of being able to thrive and be in their own way, then we create safe environments. But if we're creating spaces where children can't be themselves and they can't experience belonging, then we've got a really big problem. And in these early years, and you're right, it goes back. We know it goes back, right? It goes back to these first 5 years. And, something like 90% of brain development by the age of 5. It's huge. So people working in early years we have this enormous privilege of working with life at the very start and brain development at the very start. And that experience of play where, yes, children are learning. You can't stop children learning, right? They're learning all the time. They're amazing. They kind of learn despite us, actually.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, look at COVID. They were all fine.
They can learn. And it's about creating. If we want children to learn, we need to create environments where they feel safe, environments where they feel relaxed and experience belonging. That's got to be the first condition for learning. And so environments where we're not going too formal too quick. It's heartbreaking to me that children are getting described as having behavior issues when actually for some of them, not all of them, but for some of them, they are just a 3 or 4-year-old who needs a bit longer before they can sit still for very long.
I think it's normal if they are sitting still, at that age. We've got a big job on our hands, haven't we, in early years? Like, we are here to show them, what school's about, make them feel safe, let them have a good time. I really don't, I see phonics being shoved down their throats, and I see maths being over taught at that age, and it's like it will naturally come. We've just got to be brave. The handwriting thing as well, I'm seeing handwriting being done with 2 and 3-year-olds where we're missing the point that the fine motor skills is the biggest job, and the fine motor skills are so poor throughout all children because the play is different, that we've really got to focus on that. But we're going to lose that creativity, that imagination, that thirst for learning. We used to do so much love for learning when I first started teaching. It was like a really big thing that we focused on, that are we making every lesson engaging so that they fall in love with science, fall in love with maths? Because we just get too scared, and it's like, they will be all right, guys. Like, get to year 2. Your handwriting, you just need to chill out a bit. Doing loads of lines of handwriting at 2 and 3 will not make them great writers when they get to year 2. What they'll do is they'll not want to pick up the pen and pencil. They'll be bored of it, and they'll not want to want to write and do lengthy pieces.
Absolutely. And looking at different children and what they want to do, you will meet some children who at 3 and 4 suddenly get, fascinated by phonics. And you meet other children who just don't want to go near it yet because they're busy working on a different part of their development. And neither is right or wrong. It's just different. So it's how do we prepare teachers and practitioners to take that child, that individual child, and go, this is what they're interested in. And as my skill set, how do I feel freed up? Like you said, do we need that curriculum? Because we've got some amazingly talented practitioners and teachers out there who don't feel freed up to be able to just capitalize on their own skill set and follow where that child is going. And I was in a nursery last week and I saw children, laying the table, pouring their own drinks, growing veggies, right, creating obstacle courses. And it's like, that's it. That's where it starts. That's your handwriting preparation right there.
It's that simple, isn't it? Obviously, like, my expertise is the outdoor play, but I just literally, I go in and I just go, guys, there's enough stuff going on inside. It's not that difficult. Just strip it back. Just have the loose parts. I'm really passionate about that pure play. That unprompted, I can think of my own play kind of thing. And I just think the outdoor space is your perfect place to create that kind of play. And like, where you have to work on it these days because they're not accessing that pure play. But when you do it and you just see kids just creating up their own ideas, and it's mainly K-pop demons at the minute that they want to do, but you have to sit there, but I'll be like, come on then, let's create a theatre. How are you going to do it?
That's it, right? Yes.
And to be fair, because I've not got a class, I can go in there without any distractions and just go and play with them. But I think, as a government, it's part of our job to take those distractions away in early years so that they can purely focus on playing with them and, creating those cultures and those, I was just saying, in France, theatres would look a bit like this. And I was talking about other countries and I felt so good giving these children that sort of extra knowledge in their life. And it's kind of that we need to do, isn't it? It's the freeing up and it's the stripping back. It's not
It's not. It's really not. And actually, young children are remarkably capable of creating their own learning opportunities. That's what we forget, is that it's like they've got this kind of inner guide that goes, I know what I need to do. I know I need to move. I know I need to communicate. I know I need to figure out social life. And so how do they do that? Play. It's like we have this ready-made genius idea, it's called play, and it covers everything they need to cover in their development. It's right there, and sure, it might need skilled practitioners to step in at the right moment or to back off at the right moment and to create the environment. But we have play, and that is everything. It's everything. They can learn everything they need to learn through that. And like you said, the outdoors, you'd have loved this nursery I was in, because I walked out into their outside space and it was nothing short of magical. It was just magical. There were children playing in the sandpit. There were children doing construction. There was a gorgeous painting provocation set up. They'd been inspired by World Cup and tennis and sports days with older children, siblings, and they'd got set up like a loose parts obstacle course, essentially, where the children could set up their own obstacle courses. And there were nearly 30 children in this outside space, and it felt like there were 10. I mean, it was so busy and industrious, and just, it was magical. And there was so much learning, so much learning. And that's, and the conversation around how we get back to that instead of this increasingly formal drive, it is so important.
Yeah, and I think part of it as well is the social media. Like, we didn't have that back in our early days, and obviously we didn't have the money either to go and buy all of these tough spots and kitchen. We didn't have any of that. You just had to make do. We were like mad skip ladies. That's what we were. We were just going around
charity shops.
When I look back at that, and now what I try and do and influence with my schools now is that, all of that actually is just heavy marketing. They're just marketing you. The companies are just marketing you. They want you to buy all of this stuff, but actually we all know that they don't last very long. They'll waste our money on stuff, and actually just the upcycle stuff is pretty okay. It's okay. Right, I could talk to you forever. So So just tell everybody, I know you've got a book out with Bloomsbury. Do you want to tell everybody about your book?
I'd love to. So it's called Childhood Understood, Keys to Behaviour and Big Feelings in the Early Years. So we look at a lot of the stuff we've been talking about today. So how we have a compassionate approach to behaviour. We explore things like, is behaviour on the rise and why that might be, and what we can do to support children and families. It's aimed at parents and professionals, which it kind of actually, I hope, brings this really nice blend of that teamwork and that collaboration we want when we're working with families. So it's kind of, we've got, case studies from earlier settings and schools, but then we've also got parent views in there and voices coming through. There's activity ideas, there's practical tips, and it's really all about how do we help children get to this regulated place. And also there's a whole chapter on how we get ourselves to that regulated place, like we started talking about at the beginning, because that a lot of people now are going, Sarah, I know this, I know co-regulation. How how do I do it?
As well, that there's lots of practitioners that are working out that they're neurodivergent too. And so now it's a case of, and we're getting burnt out really quickly. I did in my career very quickly, because you're putting everything into it. I'm ADHD, so I'm just like working at 1,000,000 miles per hour all of the time, which is great. You can do the job, but it's getting to that point where, we look after ourselves too in this situation, because I don't think other people out of the job realise that we are dealing with a lot of emotions throughout the day, because we're very caring, compassionate people. And then when we get home, we've also got our own children who probably, we've got their emotions, and it's constant. So I really like that about getting to that place where we are co-regulating.
Mm-hmm. And like you say, it starts with us. We've got to be okay, because there are very few jobs where you are, so many parts of who you are brought to the job, and teaching is one of them. You're thinking, there's cognitive going on, there's social going on, there's emotional going on, you've got safeguarding going on in the back of your mind somewhere, you've got a child who's come in and needs bucket loads of support that day, and we are bringing our whole selves every day. And it's how do we bring our whole selves but also maintain us being okay, and that it is really important. And even down to I think one of the suggestions I give in the book is if you've got nothing else, regulate with the child, but go outside with a small group of children and do regulating stuff together, go through some sensory circuit stuff together, do some star jumps, push against a wall. If that's all you can do in that moment, at least you're engaging in regulating activities together. And then I've also talked in the book about leadership structures and supervision and policies. About, it's not loads on it, but just a little bit, just to kind of go, it starts with the whole. We've got to create a culture of well-being.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thank you, Sarah. Is there any other way people can follow you? I know you've got a website.
I've got a website, childhoodunderstood.com, and Instagram is childhood_understood.
I never know.
That's right. The little line at the bottom, childhood, little line, understood. And I'm on there. And you can find me on Facebook as well. So please do follow along. And just thank you for chatting to me. It's been absolutely a delight. So thank you for having me.
No, I really want my schools to put a focus on you. So if my schools are interested, and the teachers that are listening on here and educators early years, so you're going to nurseries, preschools. Are you from babies all the way up?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, right the way through. The younger we start, the better.
And so you come in and you'll consult on behaviour and support them with some structures, tips, ideas. Is that right?
Yeah. And I did live training on Zoom as well. So I've got a series of live Zooms coming up over the next year, which you can sort of take as a whole course, or you can just sign up to one, and we go through complex behaviours, creating emotionally safe environments, getting ourselves to regulate, all of that stuff. And they're always recorded. So people, if you can't make it last minute because of staffing or whatever, there's always the opportunity to catch up. And they're on my website. People can sign up. And I've also just started some webinars on autistic girls, very close to my heart. My daughter's neurodivergent. Yeah. Well, it's still, autistic girls are still so under recognised in education. And I work with so many parents and settings and schools where I'm hearing the parents say, I'm seeing this, I'm starting to wonder. And the educators are going, oh, I don't know, maybe it's just attachment, maybe it's just, and I'm going, okay, there's so much here for autistic girls we need to look at. So they're not getting diagnosed at 40 something, and we can get the support in place and try and protect their mental health a little bit.
Yeah, because I'm going for my autism diagnosis now that Sienna's been, because I didn't see it coming, actually. I had, so it was about 4 years ago, I was in a private school. I only had 10 children. It was very, very calm anyway. I had 2 little girls that were presenting with just a lot of anxiety, but nothing untypical that I'd not dealt with before. And I felt like they weren't, they weren't feeling unsafe. I could manage it. I knew them well. But then my colleague who was in the opposite year one class was like, we need to refer them. They're definitely, these 2 are definitely autistic. And I was like, are they? Are they? But I'd got Sienna at home that was presenting similar. But I think I was just managing it, and I'd got a toolkit, and, weren't presenting anything like the boys. That was the thing. Nothing like the boys. But both girls got referred, and both girls were diagnosed with autism. So then I was like, right, I need to get Sienna referred. Like we're quite a lot, and I'm not, and I did, and it took 4 years for her to get diagnosed. She only got diagnosed 3 months ago, but we'd already got toolkits put in place. I knew after those 2 girls that she was, so we went with that. But yeah, it's difficult, and I think, like you said, it's the mental health when you get older, which I've struggled with massively, and it's still not got a good toolkit for it. And it's like, I don't want that for any more children. I really don't. And I assume you're in the same boat there as well. You feel 100%,
it, 100%. And people talk about labels, and I get it, but again, people, you've probably seen things like this. But if I were to recount to you the labels I was given, starting with my grandmother saying to my mum when I was 2, "You've got to watch this one. She's sensitive," and it carried on right the way through. And my school reports, you can see it's all there. And actually, and it hit my mental health really hard when I was a teenager, really hard, and it's taken a long time to recover from that. And if I'd known, I'm not saying life would have been magically easy. I think it is harder being neurodivergent in a neurotypical world. It's not that it's a cure-all for life being hard, but again, a little bit like understanding children's behaviour. If you've got a framework for understanding why you respond to things in the way you do, and systems that you can put in place, and that toolkit you're talking about. And I want, for my daughter, I look at her and I'm like, I just want you to grow up knowing this isn't your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. You're not faulty. You're an amazing human being, and your brain, just like everyone's, all our brains operate differently, but our society and our education system are a little bit more set up for the neurotypical brain. So it's going to be tougher, and we've got to work out how to figure this out. And that, I'm incredibly passionate about that. So that, if you're interested in autistic girls and how we can support them, if you're just wondering, let's start a conversation.
I love how worded it once, which is, I'm just difficult. And I remember feeling the same things. And I says, no, you're not. You're just different. That's all it is. It's just that one slip of a word, a few different letters. It's not that you're difficult. It's just you're different, and they don't know how to respond to a difference. That's all it is. And anyway, Sarah, wonderful, lovely. Thank you so much. And go have a nice day. Have you got anything planned for today? Anything nice?
I am going to enjoy the sunshine through my window while I'm at my desk. I've got a desk day.
I've currently got 2 teenagers at my house, and one of them's just doing a handstand in front of me, so I best go and sort them out. We're in different schools, so my sisters have got loads of kids, so I've got 2 of them today, and then the rest of them are off next week, so I'll have a next week. And then I've got friends' children. I do 1 week where I go, right, everybody bring your kids, and then that's it. I want peace. Thank you, Sarah. Have a lovely day. Thank you.
Take care. See you soon. Bye.
If you are now interested in learning more about us, we do offer subscriptions to our resources, and our courses are all now included within the subscriptions and memberships. So check us out, www.themuddypuddleteacher.co.uk.